the future infrastructure of where highways are going to be, bullet trains, and all those things in between.
You and your bullet trains. It's never happening, man. Never happening.
I'm taking notes. I'm gonna some of this stuff. Tell me what. Okay, let's do this.
I'm not. I'm on my phone. Or I'm taking notes.
Taking notes.
Right.
Hi, everybody. I'm Rossbridgesteam here with my good friend Andrew Roach. This is the R&B Real Estate Show, helping you find your way home. We are on the first part of a 3-part episode for investors. And I was just reminded by my dear friend Andrew that there's basically 2 things that we negotiate for with our clients, and that's time and money, right? Dollars and dates, time and cents. So what are some things that we can change with a home? It's the price and the presentation. That's a completely different topic, but we're going to talk today about like just an overview on investment properties. And then we're going to break it down for you a little bit more in the next 2 episodes.
Yeah, so we decided you could do a bit of investment real estate is a massive topic. And, I really hope that we don't, graze over it. Everyone wants to graze over investment real estate because it's a fun, sexy topic. People make a killing out of investment real estate. But everybody likes to talk high level and not really get into the nitty gritty. And in all fairness, I mean, it can be challenging. It's a massive topic. So we decided to try not to just go too high level on it. And yeah, sorry, my mic's a little bit too high there. Is it? Try not to go too high level on it, and do a 3-part series. I will turn the mic down a bit here. There we go. Hopefully that's a little bit better.
We're going to give you an overview on basically like single family residential dwelling, land, multiplexes, commercial, buying a rental property, a student rental property potentially. I know that you're well versed in what you were referring to me earlier in B.R.R.R, and I'll let you dig deeper into that later for you people out there that know it's not cold, it's April, but long-term versus short-term holds, right? And then we'll dig in deeper as to what's going to be best suited for you as well too. And then in the next couple episodes, we'll talk more about area, location, a whole bunch of stuff we're going to go over.
Yeah, for sure. So yes, like Ross said, episode 1 here, or not episode 1. This will actually be episode 8, I think, of the show. But part 1 of the 3-part series, types of real estate, right? Types of investments that you can get into. So like I said, real estate investment can be a massive topic. And really, like, the number of times that I have clients reach out and just say, hey, we're thinking about buying an investment property, right? Okay, fine. What type of investment property are you looking for, right? And one of the biggest things, almost the first question that I tend to ask them is, how much do you have to invest? And I don't just mean, financially, like I don't, not just what your down payment is, but how much time and energy do you have to invest into it as well, right? That should dictate the type of investment that you kind of are leaning towards, because, let's just, as an example, if you are, you're just slammed 9 to 9 every day, busy work life, family life, I don't know, taking kids to sports, or, you got you're commuting back and forth. You don't have the time to get out to an investment property on a fairly regular basis. Well, maybe like a student rental, as an example, probably isn't the best option for you, which would probably take a little bit more management, right? What about, a large multifamily? Probably the same thing, where you're going to have just a lot of people with a lot of, intertenant dynamics at play. And yes, you can hire property management companies for sure, but, they need to be managed too. So, again, that goes back to, your energy, how much expertise do you have in that field? What are you looking to get into? What's your appetite, right? So let's kind of like go down the list of some examples of investment properties. First and foremost, that I think a lot of people naturally think of when they think of an investment property is probably just a single family dwelling, right? Whether that's a house, a detached house, a condo, apartment, or anything in between, right? Townhouse, semi-detached, whatever, single family, just one family in there, pretty low maintenance, right? Then you could go off into any degree of multifamily, duplex, triplex, fourplex, fiveplex. And once you get above the fiveplex, if you get into sixplex or more units in a building, now you're starting to look at commercial financing. And I don't think there's going to be very many people out there at all that their first investment property or second investment property is going to be a large multifamily building. But who knows? You never know, right? But I mean, just so people have that understanding that if they went to a seminar or watched a show or listened to a podcast or like that, and someone's killing it in the multifamily space and they have I don't know, 10 12 plexes and they're like, I want one of those. It's a different animal, right? It's a different animal. And a lot of people will cut their teeth on a single family or a small duplex or something like that before they get into the large multifamily stuff, right?
One of the cool trends I'm seeing right now, and we talk about the single family dwelling, and I know that this is happening a little bit more Cambridge, Kitchener, up there, where we're seeing people that are taking a nice bungalow and they're turning it into what I would refer to as a semi-detached. They're basically splitting the dwellings, making 2 kitchens, and then there's a lot of things you got to take into consideration if you're going to be that versatile with a home, right? If you're looking for something that's going to be, like Andrew's discussing, hands off, then a new build, a condo, that's pretty easy. You're going to only have to deal with one other person, right? If you're looking at being a little bit more creative, doing renovations, flipping to yourself, I'll let you go all into the refinancing on that. You've got a lot of experience in that. Then that's a great way to obviously get a property and get good rent. You don't want to do high-end finishings for when you get somebody in there. Multiplex or a duplex, a triplex. If you're looking to get something, we won't even talk about location, but if you're looking to get something near a school, there's tremendous opportunities there where you can reconfigure a home. This is a disclaimer, I strongly recommend doing it through the city, wherever that city is, to make sure that it's legal. It will cost you 2 things, time and money, but long term, it could save you from a major, major, major lawsuit. And at the end of the day, we have human beings that are going to be living in these dwellings. So the most important thing is everybody's safety. So there is a lot of, you need to be careful of the repercussions that things could come to bite you in the butt. But student rentals, maybe you're planning, maybe your kids are 10, 12, 15, and you're thinking 4 or 5 years from now, buying a property for them, depending on where they go to school, that could be a major moneymaker. Instead of you paying all those student bills for your kids to go through college or university, well, that investment property could be paying for it and then some, right? So, I think that the best way to go is highest and best use of the property. You own the lot when you buy that. You get into a condo, a townhouse, a semi-detached home, then you only own the rights to the dwelling. You don't own the rights to the land. I do say that land is the last gold rush that we have. There's the demand for land is incredibly high, especially within the GTA corridor all the way to Niagara Falls. So yeah, with regards to single family dwellings, I think that Andrew and I'd like to think that we would agree that would be your best residential investment.
I wouldn't necessarily agree or disagree. I mean, like how I opened, right? Everyone's different, right? Everyone is. I can't. You can't just blanket statement and say, "Oh, well, this is the best," because maybe it isn't. Maybe it isn't the best. Like maybe maybe somebody has a little bit more time, energy, maybe, I don't know, maybe you got an early retirement, right? Maybe you were in the military for 25 years and you're pensioned out and you're just turned 40 or something like that, right? And you got a good income coming in, and you've got you've got all the time and energy and that you could ever want, right? And what's to say that a single family is the best for that person, right? So everybody is different, and that's why I specifically say, what's your investment, right? What kind of investment are you prepared to make into this property? Do you just want to throw a bunch of money at it and never hear about it for the next 5 years? Okay, then that's fine. Then there's an answer to that. Or are you like, no, I want to be totally hands-on because I'm just that type of person where I have to micromanage everything. I just need to know what is happening at every moment. Well, it's probably not the best thing to hand over the keys to somebody else, right? You might be stressed out wondering what's happening with your money, right? So everybody's a little bit different. One of the things that you touched on there just briefly that reminded me of a conversation that we were having with a client who is starting to think about buying an investment property. And so, and this isn't the first time that I've heard this. It's probably maybe the third time that I've heard this, is that, their kids are, 9, 10, 11, 12 years old. And they're thinking, well, maybe I should buy a student rental now, buy an investment property now for where my son or daughter are going to go to university. And I understand the logic behind it, but I don't necessarily think that that's maybe the most sound approach. I would sooner say, what happens? Let's just say, okay, they're like, you know what? I think my son or daughter are going to go to Laurier because it's the closest university. Well, listen, ask yourself, when you were growing up and you went to university or college, did you go to the closest college or university to you so that you could be close to your parents because that's what you wanted? No, you want to spread your wings. You probably want to move as far away as you possibly can, right? So it's gonna suck for yourself if you're thinking that your son or daughter are going to go to university nice and close because you don't want them to leave. It was the exact same thing when you were a kid, and your parents didn't want you to leave. You're going to want to leave, and they're probably going to want to leave too. So don't go and buy an investment property in where you think they're going to go in 6 years from now. Instead, I would suggest buy an investment property anywhere that makes sense for you now. And then when the time comes for your kid, when they chose where they want to go to university or college, then you can say, okay, well, let's sell this investment property and go and buy you a student rental out to wherever location you're going to go at that point, right? Rather than being stuck at one place. Because maybe, to your point, Ross, maybe that wasn't the best investment for you, buying that student rental now. And you're just thinking, well, I'll just grind it out for a few years until my son or daughter does go to university. And then they don't end up going to university or at all. Right?
I couldn't agree more with what you're saying in terms of coming at it from a perspective of what's your hand-on approach going to be. If you're going to use a property management company, or if you need to be in close proximity to where you're going to actually be buying. And then we look at, obviously, positive cash flow. I mean, I hate to say this, but, depending on your kids could only be at that school for 1 or 2 years anyway. So even if you're planning, it's nice to plan ahead. I think if you're buying in the right location, as a student building is a great, like, to buy an actual multiplex, a dualplex, or whatever the heck that is good. I think it's when there's a lot of people living under one roof, you're opening up a lot of problems that can happen, right? So just putting a lock on each door and doing it that way, I've seen some interesting student rentals over my years.
So you're talking about a single family house that has been rented out to like 5 or 6 rooms to 5 or 6 students, and then of course they share the kitchen and the bathrooms, but then they all have their own bedroom, right? That's what you're referring to by sticking a lock on the door.
I just feel that in so many ways it's so wrong, right?
Man, that's like university life. That's part of it, right? I grew up in Kingston, right? We had the Queen's Ghetto that was there, right? That it was all these old Victorian houses that were all chopped up into, these houses. I mean, the same thing, right? I went to university at Laurier. Friends went to Western. They're all the same. Buying houses down in London, student rentals, Hamilton, of course, down to McMaster, same thing, right? Like you buy a house, a bigger house with 5 or 6 rooms in it. And to your point earlier, Ross, about like making sure that you do it right, even if you do it that way, that's fine. Do it that way, but make sure that you do it properly, right? Get the fire department in there. Make sure there's egress, right? Because again, listen, they're kids. They are kids, right? Some of these kids are 17 years old and they're moving out, going to university, right? And I didn't even know what I was doing at 19, let alone 17.
Totally.
Right. So just make sure you do it right. I guess I can't stress that enough, right? To make sure it's all above board, right? They're human beings. And then of course, if you, anybody that's not thinking about buying a student rental, but have kids that are going to university and maybe buying a house, go check it out. Where's my son or daughter going to be living? Are they going to be in the basement? Are they going to be upstairs? Even if they're going to be upstairs and there's going to be someone in the basement, you know what? Just have another look at it. Are the windows big enough to get out? If there was a fire like right here, just arbitrarily point on the ground. If there was a fire right here, how could people get out? And keep in mind how quickly a fire can spread. Like it spreads within like minutes. That's it. It doesn't take long at all for a fire to go crazy. So
when Andrew touched on egress, everyone there, that's basically what he was just referring to as the exit points, making sure the windows are large enough. They wouldn't be trapped in a brutal situation like a fire. So,
100%.
At the end of the day, there's so many different options, and then the financing component towards whether you're looking at an investment property. If it's not your primary dwelling, then we need to be very cognizant of the mortgages that we're applying for. And then you need to understand if you're buying things like land or things like that too, that there's completely different lending rates. It almost falls more into a commercial lending rate. There's ways around that too. And that's why you contact us, if you were maybe going to be renting out the land, or you could be getting tax breaks if it was farmland, or I think a big thing that you can touch on right now, Andrew, and I'll help you along the way, is like the what I've always heard to is flip to yourself, you referred to it before the show started as BRRR.
Yeah. So, and you might have heard this before. If you haven't, and you're like, what the heck is BRRR? So just B.R.R.R, right? So buy, renovate, refinance, repeat, right? So the idea there is, you're going to obviously, but B is buy, you buy the property. That's a no brainer, but the type of property that you're going to buy you'll have a little bit of foresight as to what do you want to do with the property? Furthermore, how much is it going to cost me to renovate the property? And then specifically, what will the property be worth when I'm done? Oftentimes, the most successful investments like this are ones where the house is repurposed to a degree. So it'll be moved from a single family house to a duplex, where you would put a basement apartment in, or a secondary unit somewhere where you can increase the rent. And thereby, when you do that, not only are you increasing the value of the home because aesthetically it's been improved, right? You've gone ahead and you've taken up all the old carpet, you've painted, you've changed some trim, you've renovated the kitchen and bathrooms, whatever you've done, all these kinds of things. So that naturally is the increase. But from an investment perspective, the income that it now generates is increased. So if you were to say, I'm going to arbitrarily make up some numbers here. If you're going to say like a single family house would rent out to one family for $2,000 a month, but if you turned it into a duplex, you could rent then upstairs only for say $1,800 a month or $1,700 a month, but then rent the basement for $1,500 a month or $1,200 a month, right? As you can see, you've increased your cash, or you've increased the revenue that the property generates from say $2,000 a month to maybe $3,500, $3,600, $3,700, $3,800 a month, right? When you do that, the property value increases, then you can then refinance it, which is the second R. So buy, renovate, refinance, and so you can refinance it to 80% of the after renovated value. You'll sometimes hear that, see that phrase around, or that acronym around, which is AVR, after renovate, or ARV, sorry, after renovation value. You can refinance it at 80%, and oftentimes you can get, if not all of your down payment down on renovation costs, which would be phenomenal, but if not a substantial sum, a substantial amount of it, right? If you were to put 100 grand into it and maybe you were able to get out, 80 or 90,000, you think about what your return on investment then becomes. If your return on investment was going to be, I wish I had whipped out some pre-calculations here, but if your investment was going to be, say, 20% a year, based off of cash flow, mortgage pay down, appreciation, and then maybe you get some tax benefits there. Let's just say it was 20% on 100,000. Well, what does that become when actually your investment is only 20% down, or $20,000 down instead of $100,000 down? Right, that grows exponentially. Now it's like 100% annualized return on investment. So then you can go ahead and you can, and then the third R is repeat. Go do it again, because you got all or most of your money back, which case you can go and repeat the process on another property. And so, like you're saying, Ross, you said flip to yourself, right? Because you're keeping the property. It's a buy and hold, but it's not your typical buy and hold, which we'll talk about in a second. You're buying it, you're improving the value, you're renovating it, and refinancing it to get your money back again, and then you can go and do the process again. One of the biggest problems or challenges with a buy and hold, which is your typical single family, buy a house, rent it out, hold on to it for 5-10 years, right? And yeah, it's a bit of a slow grind, but it's not sexy, it's not exciting, it just happens, right? And every month your mortgage gets paid down by your tenant, you got a little bit of cash flow in the property, and every year your property increases in value a little bit. It's a bit of a slower grind, but it might take you 5-10 years to kind of make some good sizable money on it, and you can, right? I mean, my properties, I make generally, if I kind of like go back, you have these spiking years, right? If you kind of average those out, I sold a property that I bought 3-4 years ago. I sold it, unfortunately, a couple months too early. As you look back, I made 50% annualized return on investment on that property, right? And that was just a buy and hold. Didn't really. I guess I did some cosmetic stuff. I did some paint, and we changed the basement a little bit because it was pretty ugly, but it was minor, right? Minor amounts. So one of the problems with the buy and hold element is your capital's tied up, right? And then you got to go and you got to find extra either make $100,000, $120,000, $150,000 a year extra income that you can go and buy another one. Go find a joint venture partner, so now you're splitting your thing 50-50, which is not a bad option either. Finding private money, which can be expensive in the short term. Or you just, you sit there and just kind of wait it out, right? Wait until your property increases enough that you can refinance it, which we've done as well with some of our properties. But this is a good option, right? Allows you to keep just recycling your capital.
So here's a question I'm just going to throw out here, and I'll probably answer it a bit myself, but so what are you looking for in a home? And I mean, for a lot of you might be staying up late some nights like me and looking at these infomercials from the States where they're saying, oh, bank sales and foreclosures. Well, that's not necessarily realistic here. Some of the best investments that I see are typically, we'll hear the term motivated buyers. We have an obligation to protect our consumers, to ensure that obviously we're looking out for their best rights, but it's homes that need work. It could be part of the homes completely unfinished. As realtors, there's only two things that we can really control. It's the price and presentation of the home. So if there's a home that needs work and you can build equity in it, like phase one, secure the property, and we make sure that we're getting the best financing, like Andrew just touched on there, the best bet is you're hoping to get positive cash flow, take into consideration any improvements, property taxes, having a list of great tradespeople like I have and like Andrew has, so that we can ensure that you're taking good care of your property. But building that maximum equity, there's no better way to use money than, like we just touched on, with the equity of your property. So if you can hold on to it for a couple of years, refinance on a mortgage is always great, so you don't have to pay for the penalties. And then you take that equity out, and there's no better place to put it back into than another property. I've had clients that have had a lot of success with new builds, buying a new build and knowing that you're only having to put down a small chunk of that money right now, and then it closes in another year, 18 months, 2 years, and knowing that you're going to have a good controllable amount of money that you're going to want to put down on that mortgage. Ensuring that we're putting you in contact with the right accountants, so you're not worrying about capital gains. You don't want to get smacked with a big bill from the CRA. So I think those are all things that you want to take into consideration. And it's just like anything else. It's a course, it's a process. We give you as much information in a short period of time, so that you can make that best decision for you and your family with what's the best fit, right?
Yeah, for sure. And you know what, you touch on two things that I didn't think about ahead of time, but two very valid points. The first one you talked about was land, and there will be a handful of people out there that are just looking to acquire land, and maybe you've got I don't know, maybe you got an inheritance, or you sold a couple of properties and you don't really want to do the long game anymore, or I guess you don't really want to do the management element of it anymore. Maybe it's you found the perfect parcel of land that you'd love to retire on someday, but you're still 20 years away from that. Maybe you're thinking, hey, listen, you're speculating. You're thinking, listen, I'm looking at the patterns, the growth patterns within Ontario, and I think that this area is going to boom in the next 15, 20 years. And you're speculating and thinking, I'm just going to park some money here. Sure. I mean, those are great options. And again, like this, going back, not to continue to tell you comment on it before, but what's the best investment for one person isn't necessarily the best investment for another, right? So if somebody wants to go ahead and do that, you touched on land. Typically, you're only going to get a mortgage of about 50% on raw land, right? So generally, lenders would want you to put down 50%. So if you're buying a piece of land, I'm just going to say, just for easy math, it's $1 million. You got to have 500 grand down, and then you'll finance the next 500,000. I was chatting with my mortgage broker yesterday, actually, and I got the impression that it's possible to go up to maybe 60% on that. But even still, don't bank on that, right? I would say 50% would be the safe bet. For someone that was just thinking about, I'm just going to buy some land, I'm going to, park something on it, park my money there. The second thing you talked about was new builds. Yeah, I mean, a good option, again, a good option for some people. The nice thing about a new build, not too dissimilar almost to like the B.R.R.R method, where you can almost recycle the capital a little bit, or you can boost the return on investment, because if especially with the downtown condo space where it's very competitive for builders, you get out here like in Milton, right? If you look at Mattamy, like, you're not negotiating the slightest amount with Mattamy, right? They're going to tell you where to go, when to be there, how much to bring, how many times to jump, turn left, turn right.
Massive down payment.
Right, like everything, right? They're in complete control. But if you go down to, if you go to some of the smaller builders, and maybe into slightly smaller markets, then you've got a little bit more wiggle room for things. And ultimately, what you'd love to be able to do is put less money down, right? So that you don't have to put as much down. So that's what I was saying. Like, if you go into like to the downtown condo space where the builders are very competitive with each other, then you can sometimes, put as little as maybe like 10% down for a long time, right? Like, if it's a 2-year build or sometimes a 3-year build, maybe you only have to put down, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10% within the first year, and then you don't have to put anything else down for another year after that. That means that your money is working for you, because theoretically, and again, this is a little bit of speculation, but theoretically the market would continue to go up, even if it's slow and steady, which would be preferable than these big spikes. I mean, it sounds like a bit of a payoff, but they're not sustainable, and it just adds volatility to the market, right? But if you can have that, just that little bit of down payment, and the prices, the appreciation is going up, the value of the unbuilt unit is going up, then just like, being able to what your return on investment, how that changes if you put less down but you still get the same return, the return on investment becomes substantially higher, right? So if you can put less money down, that's great. But even still, to your point, maybe you still have to put 20% down through builder installment payments. You don't have to live on it. You don't have to pay mortgage payments on it. You don't have to pay taxes on it. There's some good options there for people, right?
I want to go back to land for a few minutes.
Sure.
One of the things that I grew up Oakville. I now live in Burlington. And in terms of looking as like a vision, your dreams to where you want to be 4, 5, 6 years, for a lot of you out there, you might have these amazing aspirations for building your dream home, and maybe you're coming from Toronto or Mississauga and you're looking at moving into Oakville or Burlington. And like you said, you find that beautiful parcel of home where you want to build the home for your future, right? There's tremendous opportunity now where instead of you buying that property in 5 or 6 years, it could be a bungalow, a side split, something that has a good parcel of land where we can do the due diligence through the city, whether it's Milton, Andrew, surrounding areas, myself, Oakville, Burlington, Mississauga, where we can go to the city and find out the size of the home that you'd be able to build on there. And maybe you're using the existing home there, whether it's a bungalow or a side split, for the next 4, 5, 6, 7 years to pay for that existing mortgage on that property. So, and then your plan could be to cash out on that property. So you're not buying the land at the prices of 2025 or 2026. You're buying it with today's prices, and you're getting your money working for you. And it's a physical asset. You can take the earth from the ground and you own that, versus a piece of paper on the stock market. I mean, which you're not going to do poorly in, but that's Andrew does very well in stocks. That's a conversation for another day. But to be a visionary, and to see what is that land going to look like in 5, 10, 20 years from now. There's some of these beautiful corner properties. And I mean, maybe you got to go a little bit further west where, hey, could that property maybe one day move from a residential to a commercial zoning? And the classification and going through the planning committee with the local city to have a vision, to keep on top of, like, there's a brand new business corridor that's going into Burlington that is that's commercial land that used to be somewhat industrial, where now they're going to be allowed banks. You're going to have car dealerships. What's the height variance of future homes? So think outside the box in terms of the future vision and dream as to what's going to be the best for your family, or maybe a residential property turning to commercial down the road.
Yeah, you made a good point there, actually, Ross, about, like, where is the trend, not only just like with like provincially, where's the trend, which I think I end up looking at a lot, but even just on a more micro level, at a municipal level, where's the trend? And you can oftentimes get a pretty good idea of what's potentially going to happen, to a degree anyways, by going to the planning department within your city or town and talking to them about what's the municipal 20-year plan, what's the municipal 40-year plan. They have to, as a municipality, start planning that out. And one of the biggest struggles in our in our society in the multiple levels of government is, you got the federal government, trying to do one thing. Then you got each provincial government trying to, being told from the federal government what they need to do, and then trying to do their own thing, and then them downloading onto the municipal governments, and the municipal governments trying to figure out what they're doing within their town or city, with the municipal government or the provincial government coming and telling them what they need to do. Specifically referring to that, saying, okay, well, let's look at like Milton as an example. Was deemed, one of the under the Places to Grow Act, right? Like, so basically Milton was told by the province, you need to expect this many people, right? So your population will grow by this many people over the next 40 years. Okay, so then the town has to say, okay, so if we're planning on getting 200,000 new people over the next 40 years or whatever, or 20 years, then we need to start shaping what the town is going to look like. For, to your point, zoning. Where do you want industrial to go? Where do you want commercial to go? Where do you want residential to go? Where do you want your main traffic lanes to go? Which would be run by the region, right? And like all these things are at play. And my point is that the towns and the cities have a good idea of how their municipality is going to evolve over the next 10, 20, 30, 40 years. And you can go and ask and request that information. So you can maybe try to see, can you see a trend happen? Can you get ahead of that curve? That's what builders do, right? Like, builders already know where zoning is going to be, and they've bought that 50-acre farm or that 100-acre farm
years ahead.
Yeah, 10 years ago, and they're sitting on it. And yes, they have the capital to do that you and I don't have. However, that doesn't mean that you can't think strategically and think, they might be looking, okay, 20 moves ahead. There's no reason why you can't think 4 moves ahead or 3 moves ahead, right? So those resources are available to us. We just have to know where to ask, where to look, and what to ask.
So like long-term versus short-term, right? Like, and we talk about like the places you can go. You could just go to your city website. I joke that they still call it the town of Oakville, but I love that. But the city of Burlington, or the city of Milton,
No, you're wrong, my man. The town of Milton.
Oh yeah, with all those little municipalities and townships up in Milton. Okay, that's a farce like Oakville then as well too. But yeah, so the lovely town of Milton and the lovely town of Oakville cities. But the opportunity, right? Like, go to your town council, pick up the phone. Yeah, we're in a pandemic, but you can have an amazing conversation with a representative from your local city on the zoning, on the classification of that property, the future planning, like we touched on, right? And then your town council meetings are a great place to gather information as well too. Something that we should all be doing more of, right? And one of the things that we are going to touch on in one of our next episodes here, as this is a 3-part series on investment properties, is the future infrastructure of where highways are going to be, bullet trains, and all those things in between.
You and your bullet train. It's never happening, man. Never happening.
Choo choo. But no, it's having that vision, having that plan, and we are still a young country, and the infrastructure of our country is going a lot. Like Milton will actually is in terms of the actual surface area, like the actual land space is larger than Mississauga, right?
So yeah, maybe.
It actually is. I remember. Well,
did you? Okay. Yeah.
We're gonna have to find some factual proof,
Yeah. Well, I just kind of visually, in my mind's eye, kind of thought of a map. I know that the amount of land that Milton has is substantial, and a lot of people always look at like where we are south of the 401, but what they don't realize is that we have about like, I don't know, maybe an additional third or more of Milton's land is actually north of the 401. That goes all the way up to like Guelph Rockwood area, right? So a lot of people forget about that element of it.
Well, how many different townships or fall under Milton? There's got to be so many. It's so vast, right? Milton's just so vast that you don't really think about that. like Oakville, Burlington, one of the things that's so cool about Oakville, Burlington is they're smaller areas, right? So yeah, even though there's some densification happening north of Highway 5, Dundas, we're still seeing that when you get down into the township, when you get closer to the heart of Oakville and Burlington, a lot of that land is being built up, right? Golf courses, like you look at like, you know, I sadly joke about how, you know, Oakville is running out of golf courses. Burlington's running out of golf courses, right? Glen Abbey will eventually go. Deerfield is probably out the door in the next few years. So that's going to turn into a huge area. Look what's happened with Saw-Wet, just turned into Glen Abbey Encore, right? You know, Piper's Heath is not in Oakville. That's actually in Hornby, which I believe is part of Milton.
Yeah.
Right?
No, it's not actually. It's part of Halton Hills. Sorry.
Halton Hills. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. So, I mean, a little off topic, but the land and how quickly it will be developed within our lifetime, within the next generation, right? So think ahead, think outside the box. Is this a long-term investment, short-term? Where do you see yourself in 3, 5, 7, 10 years from now? And let us help you dream. Let us help you with your goals. I think this, with the new spring and everything we've just gone through, and for a lot of you guys that are stuck at home right now, dream. Like, think of where you want your life to be in 5, 7, 10 years from now, and let people like Andrew and myself make it happen for you.
Yeah, for sure. So just wrapping up a little bit here, types of investments that you can, you know, consider. The natural single family home, which is kind of your easiest one. Single family, a detached home, a semi-detached, a freehold townhouse, even condo townhouse, condo apartment, anything like that, right? So single family in there. Getting into small multifamily, so duplexes, triplexes. A lot of times when you get into those, you're going to be in kind of some, well, I mean, a duplex is, like you said, Ross, a lot of bungalows. You're going to get a lot of duplexes and bungalows. The nice thing about bungalows is that they either don't have a garage or it's a detached garage. And which case the main floor and the basement are the same size. So your basements on a bungalow are quite substantial. So you can have a nice big unit down there. So those are favorites for renovators that want to turn a basement apartment, add a basement suite to a home. Then you get like triplexes, fourplexes. Oftentimes you'll find those in those, like, you know, Hamilton, Kitchener, the big Victorian houses, et cetera, that are, you know, pretty good houses. They're usually around 2,400 square feet. So you can get some good size units in there as well. And then of course the purpose built stuff, right? When you can get like a small, you know, 6-unit apartment building to, you know, 8 to 12-unit apartment building. Those are always good.
From a standpoint, two-story townhomes are highly in demand. You and I both know that we're seeing a lot more 3-story townhomes that are being built. And then, of course, we could talk on this for at least an hour, the freehold versus condo component of the property that you're going to buy, right? So again, that's how hands-on do you want to be? And at the end of the day, you know, what makes the most sense to you as an investor?
Yeah, absolutely. And then continuing along, like you said, we talked about student rentals for, you know, for a little bit there, right? But same idea, renting out rooms to a bunch of students, doing a flip, right? We kind of grazed over the flip. It almost gets wrapped into the BR.R.R, but, you know, just a straight flip. Buy a house, renovate it, sell it. You touched on capital gains a little bit there. We didn't really get too much into it. That's not our field of expertise, taxes, by any stretch of the imagination. But the nice thing about flipping a property is that, again, talk to your accountant. Maybe there's something about your taxes that might be different, but generally speaking, you'd be subject to capital gains instead of income tax, which is always beneficial.
Buying through a corporation versus buying as an individual, and where you're going to get the best tax breaks. So the opportunity for setting up a corporation right now is probably better than ever.
Yeah, and that's a whole other discussion, right? When that makes sense, how many properties do you need to own? How much cash flow do you need to have and income rolling off of those properties before it actually makes sense to have a corporation? Um, when you're going to transfer properties from your personal name to a corporation, does that make sense? Again, these are all topics that you would want to talk extensively with your accountant about. Yeah, we didn't even talk about corporations, but if you get into that, like you need to have, if you're going to open a corporation and start putting properties in the corporate name, you need to know with absolute certainty that you are going to be owning, say, 5 properties or more, and that it's going to be generating a specific amount of income. Because if you fall short of that, you're just wasting money, right? You're wasting money by setting up the corporation, by doing corporate taxes every year, and by and then buying an investment property for financing. I apologize. Financing an investment property in a corporate name is much more difficult than it is in your personal name. So oftentimes you're going to pay higher interest rates or have to put more money down, et cetera, right? So that's a whole other topic in and of itself as well. But you're right, Ross. I mean, I kind of just didn't even think about that just when we were talking about this show, when we were talking about types of properties. But yeah, absolutely.
One thing we're excited to do, and it might be a handful of episodes from now, but we're going to start bringing in guest speakers. And one of the things that we're going to really be focusing on as your financial real estate advisors is looking out for, ways that we can shave off all our expenses, and a creative way of maybe wording that, but the art of financing, right? We all want to make sure that we're doing what's ethically correct, but keeping as much money in our pockets as we possibly can.
Okay. We'll talk about that another day because I don't even know what you're talking about.
Well, bringing in an accountant to advise us in terms of what are some of the best strategies with the corporation versus doing it under your own name. What are the things that we can write off, and how we can look to people that are specialists in their field. Because I don't know about you, I'm not a mortgage specialist and I'm not an accountant. So I pride myself on putting my clients in contact with people that are going to be able to give them the best advice on that specialty topic, like you and I are realtors.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. Certainly, there's people can speak from their personal experiences about something that worked for them or didn't work for them, but that certainly doesn't mean that that is going to work for you or not work for you. So I know that whenever I've spoken to accountants in the past or listened to accountants speak at conferences or in groups or webinars, it always comes back to, let's talk about your personal situation. Because Ross, your situation is much different than my situation. What would work for you wouldn't necessarily work for me, and vice versa. So you can't say, well, Ross is super successful doing this, so I'm just going to copy him and do it too. Maybe Ross has a different, income level or structure, or a dependence or non-dependence, or any number of reasons.
Risk level, right? Maybe
yeah, everything is different. So yeah, for sure, I agree. Speak to the professionals in those fields to talk about how do those things pertain to you specifically, and
let's get our money working.
What's changed in the last 6 months? What's changed? What rules have changed? What new products are available or no longer available? And again, talking to accountants, they're always doing continuing education courses from the CRA, right? This is what's happening now. These are the new things. This is the new case study, blah, blah, blah. You need to be up to date, right? Not just talk. This is what I did 3 years ago and it was working for me. Well, I'm going to do the same thing, right?
Awesome. Well, you know what? This is a 3-part series, and I don't know about you, but I think we touched on some pretty good overview material for our first episode. How do you feel about wrapping up the first of 3 in the investment property series?
I think we did a pretty good job of touching on some stuff. Hopefully we didn't jump around too much so that it was difficult to listen to and stay on.
Like our previous episode, which I thought was awesome, by the way.
Oh yeah, the last one was good. But that was a whole we just kind of just went on this big long tangent for a while, but it was fun. but yeah, you know what? If you guys are interested in investment property, reach out to Ross or myself. Ask us questions. Hey, this is, you know, what are you looking to buy? You know, what's your appetite for investment? All that kind of stuff, right? And we'll just like we said, you know, what's working for somebody else might not work for you, or what doesn't work for somebody else might be perfect for you, right? So, you know, reach out. We'll have those discussions, talk about what's available, what could and would fit into your lifestyle.
And if you want us to put you in contact with a mortgage specialist that can be creative with residential or commercial, or if you want us to put you in contact with an accountant that you know is going to be there to give you some good advice, then please don't hesitate to contact either one of us at any time. I'm Ross Bridges here with Andrew Roach. This is the R&B Real Estate Show, helping you find your way home.